canning season. Tomatoes are rolling off the vines, tumbling out of bagfuls over the kitchen tiles until we lift them into the kettle. Simmering, skins peel off, expose pink veins tracing over glistening flesh, seeds surrounded in juice like yolks of tiny eggs. Sieving out the pulp, we make sauce, save August for November. I hold you now. We're ripe.
Welcome to the Lone Star Play Podcast. I'm your host, Patrick Scott Armstrong. Join me and a famous guest every Monday, Wednesday, and Friday. We discuss their career, life, food, Texas, and everything in between. Let's get started. Well, thank you so much for taking the time today. I really
Thank you. My goodness, thank you.
I'm really excited to talk to you about poetry and, what it's like right now during, working at the university, how that's going, what classes are like. I'm really curious about that. One, I know nothing about poetry, so I'm just going to say that.
Okay.
Right up front. So we're going to...
No worries.
Right, we're going to come at it from that angle. But I have some questions, so,
Sure.
We'll just start, Wendy, with, kind of like how school has been and everything for you. And I'm sure you've got a lot to say, so I'll just let you go and we'll go.
Oh, well, I don't know that I do have a lot to say. I'm partially retired, so I teach only in the fall.
Yeah.
And so I'm working with a colleague is going to help me learn how to do Zoom, how to do my graduate poetry workshop by Zoom. And so there's old dog and new tricks here. So, and the thing is, I love being in person with the students. I just love sitting in a circle and getting to know them and, eye contact and, and handing things out and laughing. Anyway, I'll learn to do Zoom. I will. So that's it. Other than that, we have one of the things I do at UTSA is I'm very involved with the creative writing reading series, and we had scheduled among other writers Joy Harjo to come this fall, and of course we had to cancel everything. So there'll be no reading series and nothing on campus really. So it's sad. At least we can keep going virtually, but it's strange. Yeah. And I feel so lucky. I mean, compared to so many people, I mean, I'm not alone. My wonderful husband, Steve Kelman, is with me, and he's doing all the shopping. And so we're very lucky. And my heart just goes out to so many people right now.
Yeah. Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, I'm glad that, you've got someone there to help out. You've got each other. You've got each other, right?
We've got each other. Exactly.
Yes.
Exactly. Yeah.
That's what my wife and I say. We've got each other through this.
Exactly.
Right? So, yeah, absolutely.
Goodness.
Yeah, I feel blessed for that. You're right.
Me too.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Well, it's, so you make an interesting point there about, the classes can still resume with universities and whatnot, but maybe what's some of these, events and sort of things on the side, extracurricular stuff, they're not going to be able to happen now, a lot of these things. So students will miss out on those opportunities. Maybe they'll still get the classes, but that's still a fundamental part of, the education process, in my opinion,
So
right? And going through that. So
Patrick,
that's...
I agree so much. I mean, for our student writers, having these visiting writers come in is just an enormous experience for them. We had Rita Dove last year, and she came to class and she went to dinner and lunch with the students. And I mean, it just made so much to them. So yeah, this is a loss. Mm-hmm.
Yeah, you're right. You're right.
Yeah.
Well, let's hope that, it doesn't last too long, right? That's everyone's hope, obviously, that this can turn around and the schools can get back to doing something semi-normal.
Right.
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 It's a long road. It's a long road.
I think it may be.
Yep.
Mhm.
So what have you been doing as far as, have you been writing and stuff? What, have you been taking up any extra hobbies or anything at the house or?
Not too much. A sad personal thing for me is I had a book come out in January called Gloss, um, and I was able, luckily, to do some readings, out of state. I was able to, but that we had to cancel the rest, and so that's been very sad.
Oh,
And
I'm
I
sorry to hear
haven't
that.
been doing new writing very much. I think I'm too. Maybe I'm just in one of those in between places. I have a lot of obnoxious things to do. We've been doing household things that you wait every year is okay. We're gonna do this summer.
Yeah.
So a lot of things on that kind of list.
Yeah.
We've been dealing with medical stuff, and I mean nothing urgent, but just
Sure.
So a lot of that kind of. So I haven't been writing, Patrick, and I hope I can get back to a poem soon. I have a bunch of notes for something new, but we'll
Yeah.
see. We'll see. I
Absolutely.
usually
Yeah.
get back to it.
I'm
So.
sure eventually, right? I'm sure you've been doing this. You know what you're doing. You know what you're doing.
Well, what's funny is I think the world has changed so much, and I think I'm at a place where I'm wanting to change radically the way I've been writing for a long time. I mean, all my writing has changed. Every book is very different. And I
Oh, that's
think I'm in a
interesting.
place of big change, and I don't quite know what form the new poems are going to take yet. So I'm trying to be patient with myself.
Sure. No, I understand that.
Yeah.
It's interesting that you say about sort of changing with each book, right? And just go, as you change as a person, I'm sure the way you approach it and your perspective, whatever, that sort of thing, it adapts, and that's great. I was looking at, because I don't know anything about poetry. The first thing I Googled was history of poetry.
Okay. Okay.
Literally the first thing I Googled. And it honestly led me down a fantastic rabbit hole of information.
Oh, wow.
Um,
Okay.
but what I found most fascinating at the end of all of it was one simple point, which is, the origin of what people use poetry for, and that it predated written text, and that it was for, and correct me if I'm wrong, and
Um,
it was for, preserving, things that were happening, storytelling,
right.
laws, right? Like that sort of
Right.
thing. So it had a
Uh-huh.
very practical, you know, use to
Yeah.
society,
Yeah.
if it was
Uh-huh.
called that at that time. And it's interesting to me now. I would have never thought of poetry like that. Well, when I think of poetry, I don't think of that. I think of artistic and emotions and looking deep into something and finding other meanings and, that sort of thing. So it's had a journey. Poetry's had this journey, you
Right.
know, and I just want to talk to you about that. I'm curious about all this. It's fascinating to me.
That's a really good point. And how what we've wanted from it has changed. Yeah. Yeah. That's so many different fashions and needs. Yes. And you're so right. I mean, the origin is song. I mean, the songs that tribal people would sing.
Wow.
Um, so, a way of bringing the community together, and also religious. I mean, the Song of Songs. And
Yeah.
so, yeah. So a lot having to do with community and religion. And I worry that we've lost that sense of community with poetry. A lot of poetry now um, is probably written for other poets, and sometimes is not real easy to understand immediately. Um, Not that it should be, but actually, I'm being too quick here. Right now, there are just so many different styles of poetry, so many different kinds. I mean, from hip hop to real abstract expressionism to, um, yeah, poems that even I can't understand. And um, so there are just so many different styles right now. And I had this in a poem. One time, this computer guy was at the house and helping me with stuff, and he saw all the books, and he said, "You know, you read all these books?" We said, "Yeah, we read." And he, you know, he was kind of a doofus. anyway, so he asked what it was what I write, and I said mostly poetry, and he said, "Oh," he said, "fluffy stuff." I know. And he wasn't really kidding. So there's that, there's the Hallmark card poetry, and then there's the real obtuse kind of intellectual kind of. So there's so many different styles, and different magazines that support different styles and different communities. And one of the things that keeps me going is I have wonderful poetry friends, and we exchange poems regularly. And that really helps, helps. I think we all need editors. I don't know any poet who doesn't have at least one or two other readers to help. Yeah.
Oh, that's interesting. Okay, so feedback on the poem. What sort of feedback can you give on something like that that's artistic? I don't know. I'm asking. I'm curious. Like I'm curious what sort of notes you get back.
Line 7 doesn't work. It's too vague. You repeat the word apple in line 3 and then again in line 13, and you need to find another fruit. The poem's working great, but then you could cut out lines 13 through 17. They're not needed. The end is too vague. So that kind of stuff. Yeah.
That's so interesting.
Yeah.
That's
really
so interesting.
I couldn't about my friends, and I think I help them too. So we all help each other. Yeah.
Oh, of course. I can only imagine it works, right? Everybody adding to that sounds like what musicians do when they're writing songs, and they
exactly. Patrick, yes. Yeah.
Wow. Yeah. I would have never thought that with poetry. Just in my mind, I think, okay, it would be like a painter sending a painting off to a friend and be like, okay, what strokes don't you like? Right? What should I get rid of? But painters don't do it. They just paint and they're done. I thought that's what poetry was. Like, that's it. There's no, how can you tell me? But this is so fascinating. Wow. I love that.
I have folders sometimes 2 inches thick of revisions of a poem.
Wow.
Hundreds of revisions. Oh yeah, it's a long process.
I love that. Wow, that's amazing.
Some people write faster than others. Yeah. I have a wonderful friend, Alice Fryman, who's a great poet, and I can't believe her. I mean, I envy her. She's in her 80s, and she whips out a fantastic poem practically every week, and I can't believe it.
You're just mad at her, like, why? How are you doing this? Yeah.
You're right. And here I am, this version and these notes, and then anyway, yeah.
That's funny. Yeah. That's fun. Well, everyone has their process, and
that's right. We all do.
Yours gets you to where you go. That's right. Yeah, I love that there's a community of people working together, and that this is great. I just really, honestly, I didn't know that it was like that. That's fascinating to me. Like, do you ever co-write poems?
I haven't done that actually. Co-writing, no, not like that. Co-translating, yes.
Okay.
Former colleague, great friend, Saranendranath Tagore from India, great grandnephew of the brilliant, great poet Rabindranath Tagore, who won the Nobel Prize in I think the 30s. He and I co-translated the last poems Rabindranath Tagore wrote in the year before he died. Wow. And that book came out from Brazil in 2001, I think. So I love that process of co-translating.
Is that difficult given?
Oh, yeah.
Right? I speak Spanish fluently. I speak Spanish and English.
Oh, good for you.
But I know that there's complete differences of phrases, right? I'll try to explain one phrase from Spanish to English or vice versa, and it's hard sometimes.
And just the music, just the sounds.
Yeah.
I mean, my gosh. I mean, abuela, grandmother.
Yeah. It's not even close, right? It's not even close.
With Bengali, we may not want to get off on this too much, so tell me to stop. But with Bengali, it's an incredibly musical language. So even more difference in the music between English and Bengali and English and Spanish, even
Yeah.
more differences in the music.
Wow.
And then words that we don't even have any concept of. For instance, India has words for jillions and jillions and jillions and jillions, for instance. There's one word. We, in our culture, we don't go beyond, what, a billion or trillion? That's it. But India has this concept of the vastness of the universe and the universe beyond the universe. And then there are simple things like, what do you do when in a Tagore poem, he uses the one word, to describe the part of the sari that goes over a woman's head? One word. What the heck do you do with that in English? We ended up just giving up, Patrick, and we just said, the part of the sari that goes over the woman's head, which is really clunky.
Yeah.
But we felt we had to get the image. So yeah, really interesting process. Yeah.
That's fascinating. I mean, I find that fascinating. I love how language and the differences in them and how you can express yourself to somebody in a different language, and you can almost, I find that fascinating. And for you to be able to translate like poetry, which probably there's like you said, you're trying to look for meaning as well and find that. Oh my gosh, that sounds so hard. Like
it was a wonderful process between us. Yeah.
Sure.
I missed the process. Yeah.
Fruitful, right? It's challenging, but fruitful at the same time. I enjoy processes like that as well. I'm curious, Wendy, when you, and I'm sorry if some of these questions sound ignorant. I apologize.
Well, don't be ridiculous. Don't be silly. Don't be silly.
That's just how I am, right? This is how I learn. I ask questions.
Don't be silly, right? Silly man.
So,
ask away.
Thank you. So I'm curious, when you write a poem, do you have a goal in mind, or is every poem different? Are you trying to write I guess I'll leave it at that.
No, that's a really important question. And it's usually different with every poem, but usually things start with either an image or a line. Sometime recently, if we have time, I want to read a poem about chocolate. I've been reading a book about chocolate. And recently, the last couple of years, a lot of my poems have come from my reading. I read a book called The Vagabonds about Henry Ford, that great anti-Semite who started the American road trip, with his Ford. And I found the book just fascinating. And at the time, Steve and I had been taking some trips to state parks and taking little road trips. And I visited my son, who lives in Poughkeepsie, New York, and who I'm not going to get to see for how long, but a year ago. But a year ago, I flew up and we took a road trip through the Catskills. And so I was reading this book about road trips and started writing poems. But the way they started was I was taking all these notes from the book about Henry Ford, ended up scrapping everything about Henry Ford, all these notes that I thought I was going to use, and ended up just writing a series of poems about roads and things that can happen on the road. So the poems just took completely different turns from what I thought they would. So you never know.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I love that. It's a journey for yourself, right? It's a journey,
right?
A whole experience that the person reading the poem doesn't even get, right? It's your own, but it's your own personal thing, right? Between you and, I love that. That's so cool. Right. I love that you're also open to the fact of making that change.
Well, you have to be. You have to be. You have to be open. In fact, that's the key. You have to be open.
Yeah. Right. You could get stuck in this is it, and no change. Yeah. I love that you're open to you were feeling something else, and just for whatever reason wasn't speaking to you, and you were willing to scrap a work you had done, right? That shows a lot.
A lot of scrapping. A lot of scrapping. Yeah. I think, slightly changing the subject, I think one of the reasons I'm having a hard time writing right now is because of all this stuff going on in our country.
Sure.
It's really hard not to pay attention, not to be frightened, not to be furious, and not to think, what can I, as this white woman, do right now? I wrote a poem recently called Driving While White, which was one thing I could do. I have talked my way out of so many tickets, Patrick. When I was young and tarantula eyelashes and, oh, officer, I'm so sorry, and they'd, oh, miss, don't you worry. And that'd be that, And now I'm just sweet old grandma. My husband, Steve Kilman, my husband, who plays tennis all the time and runs and bikes, is quite brown. I mean, he's, but he's real, real deeply tanned. Yeah. And if we're driving together and he's driving and we get stopped, I lean over to the officer. I lean across Steve and pull my nice little white granny number. Oh, officer, was it that? I mean, I can tell you about right privilege. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah.
It's real. Oh,
it's real. It's really, really real. Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Yeah. A lot of times you don't know it's happening. You just don't know what's happening because you're in it. You're in it, and you just don't even see it. You don't see the problem. I'm in a weird position. My mom is from Mexico.
Oh, okay.
And my dad is from St. Louis, Missouri.
Okay.
So two opposite ends. My house was just great. Two different cultures. It's how I learned Spanish. Obviously,
lucky I go to you.
Yeah, I was lucky.
Yeah.
You say that, Wendy, but the truth is, I didn't realize how lucky I was till I was older. That's the truth.
Well, I can understand.
I didn't. Right. Yeah. I was in it. I didn't know. I thought everyone grew up like me, to be honest with you.
Sure.
That's what I thought. Oh, yeah. I thought everyone goes to a different country and hangs out and comes back and has this whole, melting pot in your house, and there's two languages and there's all kinds of things going on. I just thought this is how but then you quickly realize this is not how everybody gets along, but I don't, I've been told this my whole life, and it does bother me sometimes, but I understand why people say it. They'll say, oh, you don't look Mexican. They'll just say that to me. Right. And my first thought is, well, what does a Mexican look like? Right. I don't know what that means, because if you go to Mexico, it's a country, right? So there's all kinds of people in Mexico. There's black, there's white, there's Asians, there's everything in Mexico, right? So, but I move on and right, and honestly, move on from it.
Ignorance. Yeah, we have blonde, blue-eyed friends from Mexico. Yeah, I mean, really.
100%. My mom has red hair with green eyes.
Yeah,
freckles.
Yeah.
She's 100%.
The ignorance of people, it's astounding sometimes.
It really is. It really is.
You need to be patient and.
You just have to be patient. I move on. I don't think about it again. I grew up in Texas, so something I put up with a lot here. It's just Texas, conservative, and just things people say. But anyway, my point is more just, because of that, it got me thinking, okay, you know what? To most people, I'm just this white guy going through life. That's what people think of. That's what people think of me. So I have benefited from that privilege as well. Mm-hmm. I have, it just, and I didn't realize it for a long time. I just didn't know it was happening. People make racist comments in front of me about Mexicans to me all the time, because they just think I'm this white guy like them or something. And of course, my whole life.
Is it in Austin?
I grew up in Dallas.
Okay, Dallas.
So that mainly happened around there, but it definitely happens in Austin too.
Oh my God!
Even quite recently, as a few years ago, I was with a friend and his wife. I won't say names, but I guess the wife didn't know I was part Mexican, and proceeds to tell me this story about this Mexican cutting her off on the highway and how Mexicans should go back to their country and all this. And she's just going up. No. And I'm looking over at my friend, and he knows. His eyes are like, what is my wife saying right now? And I'm thinking, this is what people talk about when they don't think of Mexicans around. I've experienced it my whole life, like the curtain, behind the curtain, right? And then you say, well, I am Mexican. I'm half Mexican. Oh, well, I didn't mean it like that, or I didn't mean it like this, or
yeah, right.
I meant it like that. It's like, you already said it. I know. I know what you meant, you know. So, but again, I've experienced. I really can't be really a complaint. It's never held me down in any way.
Right.
You
Yeah.
know,
Yeah.
I can't relate to someone who is black, for instance, and had this atrocities going through life. I can't relate to that. They have a
Right.
way different story. They
Right.
have a real fight that I didn't have. I did have the privilege of it, of
Yeah.
getting
Yeah.
everything.
Yeah. You sort of had the best of both worlds.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah,
Yeah.
exactly. You
Yeah.
know, it's and
Good. Yeah.
sucks in a lot of ways. You know, you don't know what to do. Sometimes you felt like, well, once some white people find out you're part Mexican, okay, well, you're not. They don't want to include you all the way. But on the flip side of that, look, Mexicans can be sort of the same way sometimes. So because I'm half white, they're like, you're not full Mexican. You're not real Mexican too. So it's like, where do I go? Where do I? I've had this conversation with my brother. We've talked about it our whole lives. You know, it's like, where do we go? Where do we fit in? Where do we find ourselves? You know, so I actually have a lot of friends that are half and half. You know, something of two different cultures, because I can just relate to them more than anything.
I totally get it. And this may seem odd, and it certainly may nothing like what you're talking about, but yet my mother was from England, and father from New Jersey, and then they moved us to Arizona when I was little. And we moved and moved and moved. And I mostly grew up in Tucson, different houses, but I grew up in Tucson in the years when there was one junior high for everybody and one high school for everybody. So I was with a group, I ran with a group of kids, Mexican kids and quote white kids. And my first boyfriend was Rudy de la Garza, and who went on to become this famous endowed professor at Columbia. And
nice.
I know, and he dumped me. He dumped me for my best girlfriend. I was 15, and Rudy and I connected through Facebook about 10 years or so ago. And then every time I was in New York, we get together. And he was so sweet. And he said, I always regretted I dumped you. I said, but and unfortunately, he died 2 years ago. I was very, very sad.
Gosh, I'm sorry to hear that.
But anyway, all that to say that I look like the person who fits in, but I've never felt that way because we moved around so much. And my mother, even though she tried to get rid of her British accent, she couldn't completely get rid of her British accent.
Yeah.
And at times she would say to us daughters, she would say, "Oh, you Americans." You Americans, you know, sort of.
That is hilarious.
So it was strange because I never quite felt fit in either. And the reason I took the job at UTSA, I came on the market after my PhD. I was very lucky because I came on the market at a time when all the English departments across the country, almost all male, and they were looking for a woman. So I had lots of great offers, but San Antonio was like Tucson. I was coming home.
Yeah.
So I've been home. No Catalina Mountains. But,
San Antonio's beautiful.
It's beautiful in its own way. It's home.
Right.
I just love it. And dearest friends here. And love the students.
It's growing too.
Oh, God.
You know, I'm from the restaurant industry. I've been in it for over 15 years. So I know they're building all kinds of great stuff down in San Antonio, and, you know, great restaurants and breweries and distilleries and all kinds of, you know, those beer gardens and things that people love to go to. It's growing. It's picking up. I'm real happy for San Antonio. I love that city. I've always loved San Antonio. Great city. Great food. Tacos. I mean, the
great
tacos
food.
there.
Yep.
Yes. There's a big battle between San Antonio and Austin on the breakfast taco.
Oh, really?
Oh, yeah.
I don't know about this.
It's like you know, West Side Story. I mean, it's like, you know, so San Antonio takes credit for inventing the breakfast taco, and Austin, I guess, tries to as well. So they battle over who has the best
Okay.
breakfast taco, and they're all good. In my opinion, everybody wins because they're all delicious, and you can't go wrong.
Yeah.
Yeah. So, well, Wendy, I'm really curious about. I won't keep you too much longer, but I'm curious about a little bit more about the poetry. To be honest with you, so we got a little sidetracked, and this a podcast. That's what happens on podcasts.
Right.
But I really am just more curious on the behind the scenes of how that poem gets to somebody, right? So I'm also curious if you set out what you want the reader to take from the poem, or is that different every time, or do you
It's
leave that
different
open?
every
Or
time. It's just all this step-by-step process.
yeah,
Sometimes it's very frustrating. Yeah. It can be a long time before a poem is, quote, ready to send out, to a magazine or something. It's a step-by-step process. It just starts with a little phrase or a little note, or as I mentioned, reading that book about Henry Ford, and
yeah,
turned out I didn't use anything from the Henry Ford book, but it got me on the road, if you will.
yeah,
So yeah. So you never know.
yeah.
It's
And
just,
and you know, uh, is it the deal that, when you send it off, is it, it takes so long? Is it because when people do read a poem, are people very critical of poems? Are they looking at every
oh
single
yeah,
thing and
oh yeah,
every
oh yeah, oh yeah,
detail?
oh yeah, oh
Okay.
yeah. Every single
So,
thing, every dash, commas. Yeah,
yeah.
right. Yeah,
So that's why
line
there's so
break.
much put into it, is
Yeah,
that,
it's
okay.
the
That's
form.
interesting.
Yeah,
That's interesting.
yeah,
Is there, you mentioned earlier that you think some poets write for other poets. And
right,
I find that fascinating because, I guess that would be like a songwriter writing for another songwriter,
right,
right? Or a chef cooking for another chef.
right.
And that's not normally how it's approached. It's I'm doing my thing for the people, you're doing your thing for the people, right? And I guess it's just this whole fascinating thing to me about poetry, this community and the way it works, and it's just so different. Do you feel like that there's this sort of, you know, not club of poets, but maybe,
Yeah,
yeah,
actually,
yeah. I mean,
yeah.
yeah.
They're
I
different
guess that's what it
groups.
is.
They're
Okay, different
different
groups.
groups, and I
Okay,
mean, one of the things I care about is I would like, ideally, my poems to reach the poets who I admire, and also um, uh, that little abuela sitting in the back of the room, you
yeah,
know, who doesn't have great English, but I want it to reach her too.
sure,
So I want my poems to reach human beings as well as to be respected by the poets I respect. So I
yeah,
want them to have a human connection. I care very much about that.
yeah. Absolutely. That's yeah. That, to me, if that would be my reason for writing it, to get it to people, to make a
Yeah,
difference
right, right.
in somebody, right? To for some
Literature is a
reason.
reaching out, a way
Yeah,
of connecting us. Yeah,
yeah.
I care very much about connecting.
Well, it sounds like then maybe the origin of poem, hasn't gotten lost in poetry then,
I hope not. I
right?
think
I
no, I
mean,
think not. Yeah,
right?
yeah,
That
I think
that that
not.
as that sliver is still connected to the origin of it.
That's
Of
right,
So
right. And
that's
so
great.
many open mics, readings. I was on a Zoom reading the other night with a group of San Antonio poets, and the open mic followed. And so you draw in people who want to be writing and who care, want to listen, want to hear, and want to write. So yeah, there's a big community out there.
Well, that's awesome.
Yeah.
I think of when I think of poetry as well, my first thought is this is an old movie and maybe you've never seen it, but it's with Mike Myers. So I Married an Axe Murderer, and
I
it's
didn't
set.
see it. I'm sorry.
You haven't seen it. It's okay. It's
Okay.
late in the '90s. It was made in the '90s. But
Okay.
anyway,
Okay.
he does these poetry readings in the movie. That's what he does. He's at a coffee shop. It's like in Seattle, or no, it's in San Francisco. The
Okay.
big mugs, and he's
Okay.
doing these
Okay.
poetry. But it's more like slam poetry or something. I think they were
Okay.
describing it,
Uh-huh.
and I love that there's these different ranges of,
Right.
right?
Right.
Like, so that's more in the moment, right? Spoken. It's not meant to
Right.
be written in a book because you
Right.
need the author's emotion behind the words
Right.
to
Right.
help carry that story, right? And your words
Yeah.
are the words, right? There's no, you're not, but you also get that opportunity to read them as well and give your emotion behind the words. So that has to be great for fans of yours as well, right?
Yeah. I'm sorry. Trying to turn it off here. Oh, shoot.
I love it. It happens.
Sorry.
We're not live, so it's
Sorry.
fine. It's fine.
Stupid.
Let's just get him on the call. Let's just get him on here.
Hello, this is a courtesy call to let you know your prescription order is ready for pickup at Walgreens, located at the northwest corner of Military Highway and Heath
That
Road
kind of
in
thing.
San Antonio.
And that's not poetry. So maybe it is. Maybe I should get it. Couldn't figure out how to stop it. I'm sorry, Patrick.
Please, I love this.
Ah. Ay, ay, ay. Just shut up.
For lockdown and future order update call, please call 844.
Okay. I'm sorry.
No.
Oh, Patrick.
I needed that. That was great. I needed that. That was
Good.
great.
I'm glad you did.
Oh man, that
Yeah.
was great. I love this stuff. Podcasts always amaze me. There's always crazy stuff that happens when I do these. Trust me, it's fine. It's fine. Gosh.
Well, you're
Oh, my
great.
gosh. I don't even know where we were, but that was hilarious. Well, look, you said you had a poem about chocolate. I
Yeah.
would love.
I have a few poems I'd love to read. I don't know how
Oh
much
my
time we have.
gosh. I would love, it would be an honor for, that would be
Okay.
awesome. I would love that.
Okay, well, I don't know about that, but here's one about, this is a very grim poem. Yeah.
Okay.
Actually, wait a minute. Is it okay if I read 4 poems?
Yes.
No, okay, I'm gonna read 2 short ones and then 2 longer ones. And these are 2 short poems from my very first book, Winter Chickens, that came out in 1990. Yeah, so these are poems that were written when my son was little, and okay, canning season. Tomatoes are rolling off the vines, tumbling out of bagfuls over the kitchen tiles until we lift them into the kettle. Simmering, skins peel off, expose pink veins tracing over glistening flesh, seeds surrounded in juice like yolks of tiny eggs. Sieving out the pulp, we make sauce, save August for November. I hold you now. We're ripe. And then here's one called Schönbrunn Yellow, about the Schönbrunn Palace. Schönbrunn Yellow. The summer palace of the Habsburgs is yellow, and inside guilt climbs the walls like ivy. Maria Theresa had 16 children in this house. To keep them, she had 400 maids. The yellow walls are the color of the woman's apron in Bruegel's painting, a woman dancing on village dirt, dancing in an apron thick with grease, an apron hard with scraps of dough. Maria Theresa's favorite painting was of 3 peasants, a family taking a walk in the hills, a family of peasants like Bruegel's, dancing and drinking, filling their cheeks with cereal and beer the color of gold.
Amazing.
So those are 2 old poems. That's the way I used to write. And then, yeah. And then
is there a style? Does your poem, the way you write poems, does it have a name or a style?
There's not a name, but you can see they're just sort of short. I don't know if that shows or not, but sort of short lines. And then here's the chocolate poem. And you can see how different all these long, long lines. Yeah. Yeah.
Okay.
Okay, if I read two more?
Of course.
Okay,
These are great.
Okay, this one is called About Chocolate. Hurricane Irma is hurtling into the Caribbean and on into Florida as India, Nepal, and Bangladesh sink underwater with 12,000 already dead. Meanwhile, our friends in Southeast Texas are mopping up in the wake of Hurricane Harvey. So why am I reading about a new kind of chocolate, red chocolate, as if dark, milk, and white chocolate weren't enough? Ruby chocolate we've got now, but all these come from the same cacao plant the Olmec people used even before the Mayans. I grew up on Hershey bars, Snickers, M&Ms, Milky Ways, brownies, in my lunchbox after school and after supper. Cocoa before bed. Chocolate, like touch, releases oxytocin, the love hormone that reduces stress. Easter Sundays, my sister and I would hunt down chocolate eggs, peeking behind bookcases and the TV. Candy bunnies, fluffy chicks. And all the chocolate? Oxytocin. But how much could a carton of Mars bars help folks floating in their front yards? And truckloads of baby Ruths couldn't rescue little kids harvesting cocoa beans in West Africa, who, I've now learned, are routinely, even with fair trade, kidnapped, handed machetes to cut bean pods from the trees, often slicing their own flesh. They couldn't have seen the ads for chocolate. Comfort in every bar. Get the sensation. I just finished Sacha Bhattacharya's memoir. In 1945, during a party with Gestapo bosses in a castle near the Austro-Hungarian border, at the nearby train depot, 200 Jews were digging a pit. After dinner, the guests were handed guns. Some drove, some walked to the station. They filled the pit. There had been wine, followed by cognac with chocolate. Now I'm remembering the time when my sisters and I were visiting our grandparents. They served us a chocolate cream pie that we found swarmed with black ants.
Wow. This is amazing.
Pretty dark poem, pretty grim poem. I guess one of the things I found interesting about food, my husband Steve is a vegan, and I tried to be a vegetarian for 6 years, and my doctor told me it was killing me. I'm one of those people that I have to eat meat. Yeah. I've got apparently the metabolism of a hummingbird, maybe my genetics, I don't know. But I have to have, as one of my friends says, I have to have fat and blood. Yeah. And I hate it. I care about the environment. I care about the way things are farmed and the creatures are treated. And I get what Steve and I call my unmentionables. I get them from a local ranch where they're very kind and ecologically careful, and yes, they're not cheap, but they treat the animals, they treat the earth well, and everything. Anywhere I was going is I become more and more interested in where our food comes from and the things we take for granted, and like these children, what these children are doing. It's just horrific. Oh my gosh, I'm so sorry. Stop it, phone. Damn landline.
It's a follow-up call to let you know about the prescription, I'm sure, is what it.
Damn it. What are you? I thought if I just. Okay. I'm sorry.
No,
I'm so embarrassed.
I love it. No, please don't. I love these moments on the podcast. I promise you. They help break up the monotony of the conversation.
It's like when you're on Zoom and somebody's dog comes.
Yeah, that's my dog. They will come in every once in a while. I've been talking to people and they just jump up and I let it go. I don't even leave the door closed. I let it in case, because I learned if I close the door, they actually will cry outside the door, but if I leave it open, they leave me alone. I don't get it. So,
Right. Yeah. Yeah.
well,
Okay,
you said
one more
yeah,
poem?
one more. Yeah, yeah. I was just gonna say, you
Just
said you had one more.
That's it. This one
No,
is
no,
called
these are amazing.
In Praise of Stumps. In Praise of Stumps. Dumb as a stump, they say. My neighbor hates stumps, and after sawing down half the trees on his manicured acre, wants all the stumps removed. Eyesores, they take up space on his lawn. Not an easy job, stump removal. Grinders cost at least $100 a day to rent. And he'd need goggles, a chainsaw, a pick mattock, digging bar, and a shovel. Potassium nitrate works with a drill and kerosene. Years ago, I planned to rid my yard of its scraggly stumps, till I learned the roots of trees feed each other, pump sugar into a stump to keep it from dying, and the stump will send out new sprouts that can lift into saplings, and then, in time, into full-size trees. I hadn't known that stumps provide nesting sites for chickadees, titmice, owls, and woodpeckers, shelter for chipmunks, shrews, salamanders, and foxes. But my neighbor's not the only one in this suburban enclave with codes more rigid than a concrete slab. Grass over 6 inches high bordering the street, and you're in for a big fine. I'm thinking of Hopkins' Long Live the Weeds. I like our grasses tall enough to ripple in the wind, so native salvias can bloom and feed the butterflies and hummingbirds. Sick of tidiness, the desire to emulate British country estates with our faux scaled-down mini mansions floating on green carpet no one ever touches, other than a hired man on his ride a mower who keeps the outdoors outside, keeps anyone from taking too deep a breath, from any Whitman-esque desire to go live with the animals, which I'm fantasizing I might want to do. But right now, I'll go out, speak to my dead trees, tell them I know their roots are alive, connected to all the leafy trees nearby. And I know they're signaling each other through an arboreal internet, their intricate fungal mycelial network, maybe warning about our thick, dumb-of-the-ditch skulls.
Wow, that's my favorite one.
Oh, good.
I love that.
Good. I'm glad. Yeah.
That tells a story. It tells a story. There's a story there. The way you read it adds to it. I got to tell you.
Oh, good.
Because I feel like if I was reading that, it wouldn't come out as cool. It wouldn't sound as good.
I don't know. I don't know, Patrick.
You reading it adds a lot to it for sure. Because I can hear the emotion of when you were writing it, right? Like how you were feeling about it. I like that. Wow, Wendy, this has been such an amazing conversation. I can't tell you how much I've enjoyed this and how much I've learned today.
Gosh. Well, you're wonderful. Thank you. It's been so much talking together.
Yes, it's been amazing.
You too. Yeah, thank you.
No, I really mean that. I love doing these podcasts for this reason. I love learning and talking to people about things I don't know about. I find it fascinating. So, but thank you for just being open and vulnerable and, reading your poems. I know they're personal and that takes a lot and I appreciate that. So we appreciate it. The listeners, the viewers, they're going to appreciate it for sure.
Patrick, thank you so much. Yeah.
How can people find your poems online or connect with you online?
Well, I have a website and I'm on Facebook and I have a website. So you can just Google me and find my books, and books are on Amazon, and yeah.
You've won all kinds of awards. I saw it. There were so many. Normally I'll come on and I'll name the awards for the person, right? You were nominated for this or that, or but it's like yours. It was just, I was like, this is impossible. I don't have enough paper in my house to print this out.
Patrick, I'm old. I've been doing it for a long time.
That's what you say, but I say you got some talent, and that's amazing. So anyway, I won't take up too much of your time. I know you got probably, some other household organizing projects to take care of.
Other phone calls from Walgreens.
Yeah. Again, love that. Love the real moments. I'm all about the realness. So, well, Wendy, my best to you and your family. I hope you guys stay safe.
You too, Patrick. Stay safe. Be safe. Take care.
Thank you. Thank you so much, Wendy. All right. Have a good rest of the day.
You too.
All right. Bye-bye. The Lone Star Plate podcast is produced by Texas Real Food. Go to texasrealfood.com and you can search your city for stores, butchers, restaurants, farmers markets, and more who are using fresh, artisanal, organic sources. It's a fun site that brings all natural options all together. I hope you enjoyed this episode. For more information, go to thelonestarplate.com. I'm your host, Patrick Scott Armstrong. Until next time.